I'm a single man in my early 30s who survived homelessness and built myself back up to own my own home. My younger brother showed up at my door unannounced with his wife and their 4 kids, walked right in like he owned the place, and told me he'd already decided they were moving in. "You've got 3 bedrooms and you're just one guy," he said, like it was the most logical thing in the world. "We need this house more than you do. Here's what you need to know. My brother has always been our parents' golden child. When I was living out of a camper 2 years ago, scraping by and desperate, they told me I couldn't park it at their house because there was no space, even though my brother and his entire family were already living there rent-free. Now he wants to take my house too, and my parents are backing him up like always. Before I go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me, where are you watching from? And have you ever had family try to take something that was rightfully yours? Let me take you back to where this nightmare really started. The year was 2020, and the world was falling apart. I lost my job when the pandemic hit. My roommate lost his too, and neither of us could afford to keep our condo on unemployment money alone. I had to make a choice, and I had to make it fast. My roommate left early to move back in with his family. I stayed behind, watching our place empty out piece by piece. I sold nearly everything I owned, my furniture, my clothes, my dignity. All of it went for pennies on the dollar because everyone else was desperate too. I kept what could fit in boxes, and those boxes kept getting smaller. I owned a truck. Always loved trucks, always wanted one, finally got one before everything went to hell. That truck became my lifeline. I found a beat-up camper for $1,000, saw the ad on Craigslist, met the guy in a Walmart parking lot, handed over cash I could barely afford to lose. The camper was old, probably older than me, but it didn't leak and the door locked. That was enough. I thought I had a plan. I'd park the camper at my parents' house, just temporarily, just until I got back on my feet. My brother Marcus and his wife Vanessa and their 3 kids were already living there, sure, but they had a whole house. I just needed a parking space. A corner of the driveway. That's all. I called my mom first. Explained the situation, tried to keep my voice steady, tried not to sound as desperate as I felt. She put me on hold. I could hear muffled voices in the background, her hand over the receiver, a conversation I wasn't part of. When she came back, her voice had changed. Colder. Harder. "We have a full house," she said. "We don't want you here. Plus, we haven't exactly gotten along the past decade." I tried to explain. "Just the camper, just the driveway, just until I found work." She cut me off. "If you want to park here, you'd need to pay rent. Same as you'd pay for an apartment." My stomach dropped. The same as an apartment? I was jobless. I was living on unemployment checks that barely covered food. If I could afford apartment rent, I wouldn't need to park a camper in anyone's driveway. "That camper's an eyesore anyway," my father's voice came through the phone. He'd picked up the extension. "Take a hike. We can't help you." I heard laughing in the background. Marcus's voice, loud and mocking. Vanessa's too, high-pitched and delighted. They were laughing at me. At their homeless relative. At the family failure. "Homeless bum." Marcus shouted, loud enough for me to hear clearly. "Look at him, living in a camper like trash." My mother didn't stop them. My father didn't either. They just let it happen, let them mock me, let them grind me down. Then they hung up. I sat in my truck in that Walmart parking lot that night, the camper hitched to the back, nowhere to go. The first night was the worst. Every sound made me jump. Every car that drove past made me think someone was coming to tell me to leave, or worse, to break in. The camper door had a lock but it was flimsy. Anyone who really wanted in could get in. I didn't sleep. Not really. Just dozed in fits and starts, waking every hour in a panic, checking the locks, checking the windows, checking that I was still alone. That became my life. I'd find parking lots that wouldn't kick me out right away, grocery stores, big box retailers, anywhere with overnight parking. I'd move every few days when people started noticing, started complaining, started calling the cops or store managers. I dealt with people begging for money, people high on God knows what banging on my camper at 3 in the morning, people who'd scream at me that my camper was an eyesore and I needed to leave. One guy claimed to be with an HOA. I wasn't even parked on a residential street, just a public road near a park, but he came up to my window red-faced and furious. When I questioned which HOA, he got belligerent. Threatened me. I moved anyway. Wasn't worth the trouble. I learned tricks. I needed electricity to keep my camper batteries charged, to run my small refrigerator, to charge my phone and laptop. I'd find buildings with outdoor outlets, the backs of strip malls, the sides of warehouses, anywhere people wouldn't immediately notice. I'd run a long extension cord from my camper to the outlet, plug in at night, unplug before dawn. I know that's stealing. I know it's wrong. But I needed those batteries charged. I needed food that wouldn't spoil. I did what I had to do. Months crawled by like that. I applied for jobs every day, hundreds of applications, barely any responses. The few interviews I got went nowhere. Why are you looking to leave your current position, they'd ask, and I'd have to admit I didn't have a current position. That I'd been unemployed for months. That I was living in a camper. The interviews always ended quickly after that. But I kept trying. What else could I do? And finally, I got a call back. A warehouse in the next city over. They needed a supervisor, someone with experience, someone willing to work hard. I interviewed 3 times. Each time I showed up early, dressed in the one good outfit I'd kept, tried to look like I hadn't spent the night in a parking lot. The owner, a guy in his 50s with graying hair and calloused hands, looked at me during the 3rd interview and asked point blank, "Where are you living right now?" I could have lied. Should have lied. But something in his face made me tell the truth. In a camper. Hitched to my truck. He nodded slowly. Didn't look surprised. Didn't look disgusted either. "You got somewhere to park that camper?" he asked. "Not really. I move around." "Lot behind the warehouse," he said. "Old employee parking spaces back there. Nobody uses them anymore. You could park there. Be available for shifts. I'd make it worth your while." I got the job. More than that, I got stability. I moved my camper to that forgotten back lot and it became home. Real home. The boss let me plug into the building for power and water. I paid a small amount of rent by working Sundays when nobody else was in. I showered at my friend's apartment or at the gym. I used public bathrooms, warehouse bathrooms, anywhere I could. And I worked. I worked every shift they'd give me. Overtime, holidays, weekends, didn't matter. I was there. I learned the business inside and out. I made myself valuable. Indispensable. After a year, I got promoted to operations manager. Better title, better pay, more responsibility. I saved everything. Every dollar I didn't absolutely need to survive went into savings. I lived on rice and beans and whatever was cheapest at the discount grocery store. I wore the same clothes until they fell apart. I didn't go out, didn't date, didn't spend money on anything that wasn't essential. 2 years. 2 years of living in that camper, working myself half to death, saving every penny. And finally, I had enough for a down payment. I started looking at houses. Nothing fancy, I couldn't afford fancy. But something stable. Something permanent. Something that was mine and couldn't be taken away. I found a manufactured home 2 miles from work. 3 bedrooms, small lot, needed some work but structurally sound. The price was higher than I wanted but I made an offer anyway, $10,000 less than asking. They accepted. I couldn't believe it. I used nearly my entire savings for the down payment and got approved for a home loan. The day I got the keys, I sat in my truck in the driveway and cried. I actually cried. After everything, after being homeless and mocked and struggling and fighting, I had a house. A real house. With a roof and walls and a foundation. It was mine. I was so proud. So stupidly, dangerously proud. I posted about it on social media. Took pictures of the outside, the inside, shared it with everyone I knew. I wanted people to know I'd made it. That I'd survived. That I'd won. I didn't realize I'd just painted a target on my back. But I was about to find out exactly what my family thought about my success. And what they thought they deserved because of it. 3 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Didn't recognize the car in my driveway. But when I opened the door, there they were. All of them. My parents, Marcus, Vanessa, and all 4 kids. They'd had another one since I'd last seen them. They didn't wait for an invitation. Just pushed past me like tourists on a mission, spreading through my house, touching everything, opening doors, looking in closets. My parents kept remarking about how much space I had. Too much space for just one person. Marcus mentioned that my house had more room than theirs and was closer to his job. Vanessa had this smirk on her face that made my skin crawl, like she knew something I didn't. The kids ran wild through the rooms, sticky hands on my walls, loud voices echoing off the floors. I tried to say something, tried to establish some boundaries, but they talked over me. Kept talking like I wasn't even there. Then Marcus asked to speak to me privately. And everyone else, Mom, Dad, Vanessa, all 4 kids, they just filed out onto the front porch like it was choreographed. Like they'd practiced it. The door closed behind them and I was alone with my brother for the first time in years. "Look," Marcus said, his voice taking on that tone he used when he thought he was being reasonable. "This house is too much for just you. You should let us move in." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. But he kept talking. "Vanessa's pregnant again. Number 4. We need the space. And this place is way closer to my job than Mom and Dad's house. You've already got the camper, you could just live in that outside while we use the main house. My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. He was telling me to give up my house. The house I'd worked 2 years to buy. The house I'd saved every penny for. The house I'd been homeless to afford. There would be some changes, of course, he continued, still in that reasonable tone. Curfews. You'd need to give us notice before coming inside. You know, for privacy. But it just makes sense. You don't have a family. We have 4 kids. This is the logical solution. He kept talking. I tried to interrupt, tried to say something, anything, but he talked right over me. Acting like it was already decided. Like my opinion didn't matter. Like I had no say in what happened to my own house. He even reached his hand out to shake mine. Like we'd made a deal. Like I'd agreed. That's when I snapped. I grabbed my phone and hit record. Marcus didn't even care. Just kept waving his arms around, describing all the changes he'd make, all the rules I'd have to follow, all the ways my life was about to get worse so his could get better. I stood up, took a breath, and said, "Hell no," loud enough that Marcus actually stumbled backward. I'd rarely raised my voice to him like that. Growing up, if I yelled at Marcus, I got punished. Grounded, hit, privileges taken away. Our parents made sure I knew my place. But this wasn't their house. This was mine. And my spine could be as shiny as it wanted here. My house is not up for grabs, I said, my voice steady now, strong. Acting like I'll just let you move and won't make it happen. I bought this house for me. It's not my fault you keep having kids you can't afford. Marcus got right up in my face, close enough that I could smell his coffee breath. You don't deserve this house. I need it for my family. I laughed. Actually laughed right in his face. That's bullshit. I worked hard to buy this house. Of course I deserve it. You don't have a wife or kids. Marcus yelled. You don't need all this space. Just give it to me. You never even offered to pay rent, I shot back. I'd still be covering the entire mortgage on my own house without even living in it. How does that make sense? I shouldn't have to pay rent. Family comes first. Our parents said you were going to do this and you will. As if their word is law? I was yelling now too. They don't have the right or power to give my house to you. That's when the front door crashed open. Right on cue, like they'd been waiting for their entrance. My parents and Vanessa burst in and surrounded me. Actually surrounded me, boxing me in from all sides. The yelling started from everywhere at once. My mother's voice from the left, my father's from behind, Vanessa's shrieking from the front. All of them talking over each other, demanding, insisting, ordering. But underneath it all, like a chant, I kept hearing the same phrase. Over and over. Just do it for Marcus. Just do it for Marcus. Just do it for Marcus. Like if they said it enough times, it would become true. I told them they didn't have a say in my life or my house. Told them to get out before I called the cops. But Vanessa wasn't done. She screamed about being pregnant, about needing space, about how I couldn't do this to her. I did nothing to you. I yelled back. You just assumed you could take from me like I'd allow it. I have no obligation to you or your family. I called her a stuck-up bitch who'd never had any respect for me. Said I didn't care what she thought or how many kids she had. Told her she had zero sympathy from me and she would not be living in my house. Vanessa went from zero to psycho in half a second. She lunged at me, nails out like claws. Got me across the face before I could react. Pain exploded across my cheek and I felt blood start to trickle down. She tried to go for my eyes next but Marcus grabbed her from behind, arms around her waist, holding her back while she kicked and screamed. Let me go, she shrieked. Let me scratch his eyes out. Let me go. I held up my phone, still recording, blood dripping off my chin. I'm calling the police if you don't leave right now. This phone recorded everything. You just assaulted me, Vanessa. That's a felony. She screamed again, then stormed out with her hands over her face, crying like she was the victim. My mother was the last one to leave. She turned at the door, tears streaming down her face, fake tears, the kind she'd been using my whole life. You better do this for Marcus, she said. You have 1 week to come to your senses. 1 week. Like this was just a negotiation. Like I'd eventually cave if they just gave me time to think about it. The moment they were gone, I got on social media and posted the whole story. Wrote out everything that had just happened, didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat. I needed people to know before my family could twist it around and make me the villain. I posted it to my extended family, tagged people I knew would see it and share it. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up. Messages of support from aunts and uncles I hadn't talked to in years. My mother's side of the family, mostly. They'd always suspected something was wrong with how my parents treated me, but I'd never confirmed it before. Now they had proof. Now they knew. My parents and Marcus tried to respond, Tried to get their flying monkeys to defend them, but it didn't work. Too many people saw through it. Too many people believed me. I got one phone call that week from a number I didn't recognize. Some guy ranting about how I was a horrible brother and needed to make way for a real family man. I hung up and blocked the number. Didn't have time for that. But I did have time to prepare. Because I knew they'd be back. People like that always come back. I called my boss. He'd become a friend over the 2 years I'd worked for him, one of the few people who knew my whole story. I told him what happened and asked for advice. Get cameras, he said immediately. Good ones. Commercial grade. People like that don't stop, they escalate. And when they do, you need proof. He gave me the contact info for the warehouse supplier, told them to give me the employee discount. I bought a whole security system, wireless cameras, motion activated, cloud storage, phone app access. I spent a whole day installing them, hiding them in corners and under eaves, making sure they covered every angle of my house. I didn't tell my family about the cameras. That was the point. Let them think I was unprotected. Let them get comfortable. Let them incriminate themselves. Exactly 1 week after their first visit, my doorbell started ringing. Over and over, nonstop, someone leaning on it like they thought volume would make me answer faster. Then the pounding started. Fists on wood. Aggressive. Demanding. I walked to the door slowly, calmly. Checked my phone, all the cameras were recording. I'd installed chain latches on the door earlier that week. Heavy-duty ones. The kind that could take a beating. I opened the door just a crack. The chains held. My father and Marcus immediately tried to shove their way in, actually pushing on the door like thugs. I braced myself against it and pulled out my phone. I'm recording this on camera right now, I said clearly. Force your way in and I'm calling the police. My mother's face crumpled into tears. Perfect timing, perfect execution. She was good at this. She calmed the men down, then turned to me with that sickly sweet voice she used when she wanted something. Honey, are you ready to let Marcus move in now? It's been a week. Surely you've come to your senses? Fuck off and never come back. Her face changed. The sweet mask dropped for just a second and I saw the rage underneath. Then the tears came back, bigger and louder than before. Why can't you just do this for Marcus? He's your beloved brother. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all just hit me and I laughed like a maniac. Beloved? I do not love him as a brother. He treated me like shit for years and you only encouraged him. You're terrible parents. He's a terrible brother. Now leave, or I'm calling police right now. They left. Surprisingly easily. Just my mother's theatrical crying and dirty looks from the others. No more pushing, no more threats. They just walked away. That should have been my first warning. Because entitled people don't give up that easily. They just change tactics. 2 days later, I came home from work on a Friday evening. Long shift, I was tired, ready to collapse on my couch and do nothing for the rest of the night. But when I pulled into my driveway, there was a full-sized moving truck parked there. And Marcus's minivan. And through my front window, I could see people inside my house, moving furniture around. Marcus was standing in my driveway. When he saw me, he actually waved. This shit-eating grin on his face like he'd won. I was out of my truck in seconds, storming toward him. What the hell are you doing? Vanessa appeared from around the truck, that same creepy smirk from before. She tilted her head, puckered her lips in this mocking, fake sweet expression. Like it or not, we're moving in, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. And it's okay because your mommy allowed it. You should always listen to what your mommy tells you. Rage. Pure, white-hot rage flooded through me. I could feel my hands shaking, my vision narrowing. I wanted to scream, to hit something, to make them understand that this was not okay, this was not happening. But I didn't do any of that. Instead, I got back in my truck, locked the doors, and called 911. Vanessa realized what I was doing immediately. She ran to my window and started pounding on it, screaming at me to stop. You can't do this to me. We need this house. Why can't you just do this for Marcus? I held the phone up so she could see I was serious. Fuck Marcus. It's my damn house, not his. If you don't stop calling the police, I'll key the side of your truck. The 911 operator's voice came through the speaker, calm and professional. Ma'am, I heard that threat. Officers are en route. Vanessa backed off then, eyes wide, realizing she'd just threatened me while I was on the phone with the police. Smart move, Vanessa. Real smart. When the cops arrived, 2 cars initially, I showed them my driver's license with my current address. Explained the whole situation as calmly as I could. Then I pointed at my front door. The lock had been drilled out. The old lock was lying on my porch, the center completely destroyed. And right next to it was the drill they'd used, a Harbor Freight drill bit set spread out like evidence at a crime scene. They left all the tools on my porch, I said. Didn't even try to hide it. One of the officers shook his head, disgusted. The other one was already taking pictures. While I was talking to the cops, my parents pulled up. Marcus must have called them the moment I arrived. They came running over, already talking, already lying. Our son agreed to rent the house to Marcus, my mother said to the officers. This is all a misunderstanding. That's a lie, I said calmly. And it's easily provable. That's when Marcus and Vanessa finally came out of my house. Both of them were holding papers, looking smug as hell. They'd printed out a rental agreement. A fake one, with a forged signature that looked nothing like mine. Marcus held it up triumphantly. We have a rental agreement right here. See? It's signed. I pulled out my driver's license, my mortgage papers, my work ID. Held them up next to the forged document. Officers, look at my real signature on these documents. Now look at that forgery. Wrong slant, wrong letter formation. They even spelled my middle name wrong. I turned to Marcus, my voice dropping low and dangerous. That's fraud. If the cops investigate, you'll go to jail. You could lose your job. How would you provide for your family then? I'll get a lawyer. I'll sue for damages. I'll call CPS for good measure. Marcus went white. Actually pale. The smirk died on his face and for the first time, he looked scared. My mother pushed between us, desperation replacing her earlier confidence. Just do this for Marcus. Live in the damn camper so they can finally have a family home to themselves. I yelled back, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, for the cops to hear, for everyone to hear. If you think it's such a good idea, you do it for Marcus yourself. Let him have your house instead. The cops separated us. One of them looked at me and asked what I wanted to do. I took a breath. Looked at Marcus's kid standing in my doorway, crying and confused. Looked at Marcus, terrified and cornered. Looked at my parents, finally realizing they couldn't bully me anymore. I want them all out, I said. Right now. Or I'm pressing charges. Breaking and entering by drilling out my lock. Forged documents with a fake signature. Vanessa assaulting me on video earlier this week. Those are felonies. I could destroy your lives if I wanted to. The only reason I haven't already is for the sake of Marcus's kids. So you have one chance. Get out. Something clicked in my mother's eyes. The fight went out of her. She turned to Vanessa and spoke quietly for a minute. My father did the same with Marcus. Vanessa started crying, loud, ugly crying. She ripped up the fake rental papers into tiny pieces and threw them in the air like confetti. One of the officers looked at her deadpan. Ma'am, pick up those pieces of paper or I'm citing you for littering. 2 more police cars pulled up. Now there were 4 cops standing in my driveway, watching my family implode. My parents looked horrified. This was not how this was supposed to go. Marcus had to tell his kids to start loading everything back into the moving truck. The kids were all crying. The oldest, an 8-year-old boy, was sobbing about not getting his own room. Vanessa and Marcus tried one last pathetic attempt. They gathered all the kids together in a group hug, all of them facing me, trying to look as sad and pitiful as possible. The kids had these pleading looks on their faces, quivering lips, tears streaming down. Vanessa rubbed her pregnant belly in slow circles. Marcus made the saddest face he could manage. Please don't do this, Marcus said. We need to be able to live here. I didn't falter. Didn't hesitate. Keep packing. The crying intensified. All 4 kids, Vanessa, even Marcus looked like he was about to break down. But I'd been waiting my whole life to finally say no to them and mean it. Marcus finally cracked. Are you satisfied with yourself? You've denied us a home because you're too selfish to share and help out family. I laughed. Loud and manic and completely unhinged. What you were trying to do was taking, not sharing. And no amount of crying will make me let your family move in. You're no brother of mine anymore. You're just an entitled prick who thinks he can take whatever he wants from me like when we were kids. Marcus started cursing at me. F-bombs and worse, getting louder and angrier. One of the cops stepped forward. Sir, cool it or you're getting cuffed whether he presses charges or not. Marcus sucked in his lips and went quiet, looking terrified. I asked the cops to stick around until everyone was gone. They agreed immediately. Said they had no intention of leaving until this was resolved. Within the next few minutes, 2 more patrol cars showed up. 4 cops became 6. My parents looked like they wanted to die. This was humiliation on a scale they'd never experienced. I made Marcus hand over the keys to the new lock he'd installed. He was reluctant, petulant. Instead of handing them to me, he threw them down the street into a storm drain. Go get them yourself, he sneered. A cop immediately got in his face. Sir, retrieve those keys right now and hand them over properly, or you're getting cuffed. Marcus had to walk down the street, pull the grate off the storm drain, and fish the keys out with his hands. Got dirty water all over himself in the process. When he finally retrieved them, he grumbled and slammed them into my hand like a child throwing a tantrum. "Leave and never come back," I said. "My mother's last card. You'll be disowned for this." I laughed. Actually laughed in her face. "Oh no. That means I won't get to come to holidays where I always get treated like shit anyway. Because Marcus has always been your obvious favorite. You treated me so badly growing up that if Marcus ever needs an organ donor, I wouldn't give him anything. So do like you always told me when I was mistreated by all of you, suck it up." My parents were floored. I'd never spoken to them like that in public. Never called them out in front of witnesses. And 6 cops were standing right there, watching it all, their faces filled with judgment and disgust. My father looked like he wanted to hit me. I could see it in his eyes, the rage, the humiliation. But he couldn't. Not with 6 officers watching his every move. The family started packing. Boxes and furniture coming back out of my house, loading into the truck. My mother kept trying to bargain with me while they worked. "It's not too late," she kept saying. "Marcus could pay you rent. You could move back in with us and let Marcus rent your house. You wouldn't even have to share with them." "Shut up and keep packing," I said. "I don't want Marcus around. I don't want his money. And I certainly don't want to live with you ever again. Making a deal with you is like making a deal with the devil." Vanessa threw down a box and sat on my lawn, having a full tantrum like a toddler. She didn't want to go back to sharing a house with my parents. Sat there pouting until everyone else was finished packing. When everything was finally out and loaded up, I laid into my parents one last time. All the childhood shit. All the favoritism. All the times they'd punished me for standing up for myself, all the times they'd let Marcus treat me like garbage. I called them out on not letting me stay when I was homeless. On mocking me for living in a camper. On trying to gouge me for rent just to park in their driveway. And now they wanted me to give everything to Marcus for free? I asked them, with 6 cops standing right there, what I'd ever done besides being born to deserve being treated so badly. Why, when I finally had a bit of success, they wanted to snatch it away for their favorite child. "I bought my house with money I earned," I said. "I owe you nothing. And I'll never ask you for anything again, because clearly I'll never be more than a doormat or cash cow in your eyes." I waited for an answer. They just stood there, mouths opening and closing like fish out of water. Nothing to say. No defense. No excuse. So I asked one more question. "What in God's name made you think you were such good parents after all of that?" My father's face was beet red, but from embarrassment this time, not anger. My mother was crying, real tears for once, sobbing that she was a horrible person. "Yes," I said simply. "You are. You all are. And I bet you'll go to hell for it too." If I'd said this in private, they'd have just gotten angry, told me I was wrong, made me the villain. But in public, in front of cops, they had to face the truth. They'd kept up the denial for so long it had become part of who they were. But not anymore. My mother buried her face in my father's jacket. My father looked more defeated than I'd ever seen him. Marcus and his family avoided my eyes entirely as they finished loading up. They all got in their vehicles. Vanessa stared at me with pure malice before Marcus finally got her to drive away. And the moment they were gone, I went straight to my computer. I posted everything online. The full story, with video evidence from my cameras. The break-in, the drill on the porch, the forged rental agreement, everything. One massive evidence dump that my family couldn't deny or spin. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. My family was too embarrassed to even try to defend themselves. The few flying monkeys they had left switched sides once they saw the proof. Nearly everyone sided with me. The extended family that had been split before now came down hard in my favor. My parents' "just do it for Marcus" excuse didn't work anymore. And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because I made one more decision that week. I invited half the family to Christmas Eve at my house. My parents weren't invited. Months passed. Things quieted down. I started living my life again, having friends over, thinking maybe I could finally relax. Christmas Eve came. Everyone I'd invited showed up, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my grandparents. They'd driven 3 to 4 hours to be there, to show their support. We had an amazing party. Music, food, laughter. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of a real family. About 2 hours into the party, the front door opened. I hadn't heard a knock. Just the door swinging open. My parents walked in, followed by Marcus and Vanessa. All of them smiling, carrying wrapped gifts like they were supposed to be there. I shut off the music. Leave. Immediately. Before I could say anything else, my uncle, my mother's own brother, stood up and started yelling at them. "You don't deserve to be in his home or his life after the shit you tried to pull." Several other relatives joined in, voices rising, accusations flying. My grandparents hurried forward to get between everyone. "If you want to make amends, it's far too soon," my grandmother said to my parents, her voice shaking with disappointment. "We've never been more disappointed in you than this past year. You hid your favoritism for so long, but no one is fooled anymore. You need to make a serious effort to treat him like a son if you ever want to be in his life again." She turned to Marcus and Vanessa. "We've seen the nonsense you keep posting online, Vanessa. We're tired of it. Let it go. His house will never be yours." Vanessa plopped down in one of my chairs and started having a full tantrum, crying about how she should be living here, how it wasn't fair, how she had 4 kids and needed more space. I'd had enough. I pointed out, loudly, that she was a terrible mother. That she let my mother do all the parenting while she sat around drinking and spending Marcus's money. I even made a joke about her baby probably getting drunk from her breast milk. That was too far. I got some disapproving looks for that one. But I didn't take it back. Vanessa started screaming at me, demanding to know if I was calling her a bad mom. I told her the evidence spoke for itself. That's when Marcus's oldest son, 7 years old, came running up and started kicking and screaming at me. "You're bad. Mommy said you're the bad guy. You made mommy cry." Marcus had to grab his own kid and pull him away. And that's when the entire extended family piled on. Everyone started yelling at once, a full intervention against my parents, Marcus, and Vanessa. All the kids were crying. Vanessa was crying. The baby was wailing. Marcus looked like he was about to break down. He couldn't look anyone in the eye, couldn't say a word with a whole house full of angry people ready to judge him. His reputation was destroyed. My parents' reputation was destroyed. All the masks were finally off. They left soon after, defeated and humiliated. The party resumed and we avoided talking about what had just happened. Most of the adults had been drinking, so everyone stayed the night. Some even slept in my camper in the backyard. The next morning I made coffee and left out ibuprofen for the hangovers. My relatives told me I was a nicer host than my parents had ever been. After Christmas, Vanessa stopped making posts about me online. She deleted all the old ones targeting me. Seemed like she'd finally realized nobody was listening anymore. I thought maybe, finally, it was over. That I could move on with my life. But a few months later, in March, everything exploded again. Marcus showed up at my door late one night. He was drunk, not completely wasted yet, but getting there. He had a whiskey bottle in his hand and his face was covered in scratches and bandages. I freaked out when I saw him. "What the hell happened to your face?" "That bitch was cheating on me," he slurred. "The baby. The baby's not even mine." He'd gotten DNA tests done on all 4 kids. 3 were his. But the 4-month-old wasn't. The baby had lighter, curly hair, nothing like Marcus's dark, straight hair. Vanessa had insisted it would darken with age, but it never did. That's what finally made Marcus suspicious enough to test. He'd confronted her with the results in front of our parents. Had phone records, text messages, bank statements. He'd identified the affair partner, some guy in his 40s with light, curly hair. The evidence was overwhelming. Vanessa had a complete meltdown. Started crying, then screaming, then got violent. She'd scratched up Marcus and our father with her fake nails. Even hit Marcus's oldest kid hard enough to give him a black eye and bloody nose when the kid tried to intervene. Our mother had called the cops. Marcus had been recording the whole confrontation on his phone, so the police had all the evidence they needed. Vanessa was arrested for assault. Marcus sat in my camper that night, drinking and crying, calling himself a fool. We played Uno and Battleship like we were kids again, trying to keep him distracted. It was the most we'd bonded in 15 years. I didn't let him drive home. Made him sleep it off in the camper, left him ibuprofen and water and his keys with a note to leave through the backyard gate. A few days after Vanessa got bailed out, she showed up at my house. I saw her coming on my security cameras, walking up from where she'd parked down the street. I texted my roommate to call 911 in 2 minutes if I didn't text back that I was okay. Vanessa was high on something. Her eyes weren't right, pupils all wrong. She went on this delusional rant about how I was the entitled one, how mothers with young children were sacred, how giving up my house shouldn't have been too much to ask. She tried to manipulate me, saying she knew I'd always had feelings for her, that I was jealous of Marcus. I told her she was insane. That I'd never been anything but disgusted by her. She changed tactics, said she'd buy the house from me, she'd get a loan. I laughed and pointed out she had no job and a criminal record. Who was giving her a loan? She got desperate then. Shoved me, put her hand over my mouth, her other hand raised like she was going to scratch me again. I stepped back and held up my phone, showing her the doorbell camera app with her face clearly visible in real time. "Smile," I said. "You're on camera. Again." Want to add another assault charge? She froze, realizing she was trapped. I didn't just list her failures. I broke down her entire life. 29 years old. 4 kids. No job. Criminal record. Living with her parents. Husband divorced her for cheating. Affair partner dumped her. Her own parents ashamed of her. And you think I'm the problem? I said. Look in a mirror. Vanessa didn't storm off angry. She broke down right there on my porch. Real crying this time, ugly and desperate. She just sat on my steps sobbing. You have 30 seconds to leave or I'm calling the police, I said. She got up and drove away slowly, defeated and broken. I filed an official police report for harassment. Added everything, the first assault, this encounter, all of it. I gave copies of the video to Marcus for his divorce lawyer. Filed for a restraining order against Vanessa. It was granted immediately. Because the woman was clearly unstable. The divorce went exactly as you'd expect. We live in an at-fault state, so Vanessa's affair killed any chance of alimony. She got partial custody of the 3 kids that were Marcus's, but she rarely saw them. Took them for fast food a few times but never actually spent real time with them. Marcus took most of the credit card debt but got his name off the affair baby's birth certificate. The affair partner was confirmed as the father and wasn't happy about it. He broke up with Vanessa immediately and put his social media on private to hide from the mess. Vanessa was forced to work at her parents' dental office as a receptionist. The only place that would hire her with a criminal record and a decade-long gap in her resume. About a month after Vanessa was gone, Marcus came to me asking to borrow my camper. He wanted to give up his bedroom so his oldest son could finally have his own room. The 2 girls and the boy had been sharing one room with just a curtain dividing it, and the boy had been sleeping on the couch most nights to get away from his sisters. Marcus was finally putting his kids first. Making better decisions as a dad. I let him borrow it. Not for Marcus, for his kids. Those kids didn't deserve to suffer for their parents' mistakes. I warned him that he'd be financially responsible for any damage. Took timestamped photos and videos of the camper's condition. Made him record a video agreeing to my terms. My extended family loved me for it. Started calling me, the good brother Marcus doesn't deserve. Shortly after that, my parents came to my house without Marcus. They'd seen an animated video online. Someone had taken my Reddit posts and turned them into a YouTube story. Millions of views. And my parents had watched themselves, their own actions, from the outside. For the first time in my life, my father apologized. Really apologized, no excuses, no deflection. He looked me in the eye and said he was sorry. They'd been going to church, getting counseling, trying to be better people. They offered family therapy. I declined. Too soon. Maybe someday, but not yet. A few weeks later, my parents contacted me through social media asking for a meeting. They wanted me to help Marcus get an apartment, either give him money for a deposit or co-sign a lease. I met them at a restaurant. Marcus was there but kept quiet most of the time. My parents begged. Pleaded. Explained how Marcus's credit was ruined from Vanessa's spending. I said no. Marcus exploded. Yelled about how I had so much and he had a family to support. How I should help since I didn't have anyone. I laughed and asked where they were when I needed help. Oh right, pointing and laughing at me for being homeless. My mother grabbed my hand, begging me not to make a scene. I asked them if they thought I was rich. Their faces told me everything. They absolutely thought I was loaded. I broke it down for them. Showed them the math. 70% of my income went to mortgage, insurance, bills, food. The rest went into savings for emergencies. My truck was from the 90s. If it broke down, I'd need cash to fix it. I needed money for repairs, doctors, lawyers, anything unexpected. I couldn't spare money for Marcus. And I refused to co-sign because that would leave me on the hook for bills he couldn't pay. I'm not an ATM, I said. And I'm not a fool. I expected my father to explode like he always did. But he just sat there, looking defeated. Regretful. Maybe regretting being a terrible parent, maybe regretting that he couldn't bully me anymore. Either way, they had no response. Marcus left. My mother tried to apologize for him. I offered to buy them all soup and salad since we were there anyway. Free food, they couldn't turn it down. We sat and ate and had an almost normal conversation. It was weird. Not good weird, not bad weird. Just weird. That was 2 years ago now. A lot has changed since then. I'm renting out 2 rooms in my house to friends. Good tenants, quiet, respectful. The rent money covers a huge chunk of my mortgage. I'm finally building up real savings again. Marcus finished his divorce. Got his name off the affair baby's birth certificate. He's living in a small 2-bedroom apartment now with his 3 kids. Paid off half his debt. Even started dating someone new, a teacher, stable and kind. She seems normal. That's good. He returned my camper 6 months ago after buying his own. I miss it sometimes, but I'm glad he's finally standing on his own feet. My parents have been trying. Really trying. Going to church, getting counseling, treating Marcus and me more equally. My father still doesn't say much around me, but it's better than the hostility from before. My mother apologizes for everything constantly. The family and her therapist have really gotten through to her. I hosted a 4th of July barbecue this year. Small gathering, just my parents, Marcus, his 3 kids, and his new girlfriend. Not Vanessa, obviously. The restraining order is still active. My nephew, the oldest boy, now 10, asked me to teach him about trucks. We spent the afternoon under the hood of my old pickup, me showing him the basics, him asking a million questions. Marcus watched from a distance. Looked grateful. Maybe even a little jealous that his son looked up to me now instead of him. My parents actually asked about my work, my life. Showed real interest for the first time. My mother said they were proud of me. That they should have said it 20 years ago. My father shook my hand when they left. Firm grip. Eye contact. That was huge for him. As everyone was leaving and I was cleaning up, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "This is Vanessa's father," the voice said. Older man, tired, regretful. "I know about the restraining order. I'm not calling on her behalf. I'm calling as a grandfather." I didn't say anything. Just waited. "I wanted to say thank you," he continued. "For not pressing charges when you could have. Marcus's kids still have their father because of you. And I'm sorry. For what my daughter put you through. Your daughter made her own choices," I said quietly. "I know," he said. "And she's living with them now. But those kids didn't choose any of this. So, thank you." He hung up. I stood there in my backyard, looking at the empty space where my camper used to be. The grass was greener there, protected from the sun for 2 years. I looked at my house. My house. The one I fought for. The one they tried to take. The one that's mine and will always be mine. I could have destroyed them all. Pressed charges against Marcus and Vanessa. Let them go to jail, lose their jobs, lose their kids. I had the evidence. I had the power. But I didn't. Not because they deserved mercy. But because I'm not them. I'm better than they ever were to me. That's the real victory. Not revenge. Not destruction. Just being better. Having boundaries. Saying no and meaning it. Protecting what's mine without apology. They tried to take my house. My home. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd survived for, everything I'd built from nothing. But I kept it. Protected it. Earned it. And now I'm finally home. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you've ever dealt with entitled family members trying to take what's yours, drop a comment and let me know your story. And let me know, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have pressed charges? Would you have helped them anyway? I want to hear your thoughts. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories like this. And I'll see you in the next one.